Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you to those that have been sitting in the waiting room ready to jump onto the webinar. My name is Amber Woods and I'm the marketing manager here at AgriWebb. We're really excited to have you all joining us. I can see a couple more joining now. We're up to about 40 attendees, which is great to see. Today, we are super lucky to be joined by, we've got Lockie Herbert from the AgriWebb team, and then we've got Nick from the Farmbot team, head of sales, and super excitingly, we've got a couple of shared customers. So we've got Ian Locke from Holbrook in southern New South Wales, and we've got Phillip Coe from Geelong in southern Queensland. So we're going to kick off in a couple of minutes. We'll just wait for a few more people to join. As you are joining, we'd love you to let us know where you're tuning in from in the chat box. You'll find that in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen. I'm tuning in from Rowena in northern New South Wales. Got a couple tuning in from Hay, Adelaide, Barraba, New South Wales, not too far from me. Perth, NT. Awesome. All right, well, it looks like we've got about 50 attendees joining us now. So for those that have joined us in the last couple of minutes, my name's Amber. I'm the head of marketing for Australia here at AgriWebb. Really excited to have a couple of shared AgriWebb and Farmbot customers on the call with us this afternoon. We've got Ian Locke from Holbrook in southern New South Wales and Phil Coe from Geelong in Queensland. From the AgriWebb side, we've got Lockie Herbert, and from Farmbot, got Nick Donnelly. Before we kick off, I'll just do a very quick welcome to country. So would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and future. Last thing from me before we kick off, you'll notice at the bottom of your screen there's a toolbar where you can see a Q&A. Throughout the session, please feel free to drop in questions, not just for Nick and Lockie, but also for Ian and Phil. I'm sure they're all desperate to answer some of your burning questions this afternoon. That is all from me. I'll hand over to Nick and Locke now to take over the rest of the webinar. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Amber. Greatly appreciated. And thank you to Ian and Phil as well for agreeing to be part of this webinar. I guess we'll just dive straight in. Ian, I think you said you would like to start off on this one for us. Could you give our attendees a little bit of an overview as to the size of your operation, what you do, your current goals and areas of focus?
Yeah, sure, Nick, and thank you and welcome everyone. With my wife, Diney, we run a seed stock beef and prime lamb operation on 1,500 hectares at Holbrook in southern New South Wales. Livestock carrying capacity wise, 75% of the carrying capacity is seed stock beef. That's really Poll Hereford, fully registered and fully breed plan recorded Poll Hereford cattle. We sell about 200 bulls per annum to the commercial beef industry. On the sheep side of things, we lamb about 3,000 composite ewes, so not really for wool production, but more for prime lamb production. And we sell around about 4,000 lambs or surplus sheep, from that operation. The current goals, well, first of all, I'll probably say genetically, because that's very much in my mind, is that, we're very much looking to drive carcass traits and cow herd efficiency traits, and funnily enough, they're a little bit connected. And, we want to breed animals for clients that are highly fertile, low cost, and able to cope with high stocking rate pressure, so that they're inherently better able to cope with hard or dry times when they come. So that genetically, that's a long-term thing that we've been driving at for many decades, and it doesn't change. With regards to some current business goals, we're certainly looking to continue to drive efficiencies in our business through investment in things like feed base, but also infrastructure that includes water, fencing, and technologies, yards, things like that, so that we can get more efficient at what we do, and particularly labour efficiencies, not just to have less labour, but make things easier on labour, particularly as I and my wife get older. We want to be able to make sure tasks are not too onerous on us and our staff, that we make jobs a little bit easier. So they're the things that are certainly in my mind all the time, and the technologies that we look at, probably, that we're considering today, are part of that. Those goals. That's the major thing. Thanks,
Thanks,
Nick.
Ian. That was a pretty awesome overview, to be honest. Phil, would you like to jump in and give us your side of the story? You're just on mute there, Phil.
That'll be better. Hey, everybody. We're a family run and operated breeding, growing, and zero-till farming operation in southeast Queensland, I guess you'd say, Geelong, which is about 100 kilometres north of Dalby. We're on the edge of the Brigalow Belt, and we do have some lighter, sandy loam country, which we run our breeding stock on. We run between 1,800 to 2,000 LSUs a year, depending on seasons, and we are EU accredited, cattle care accredited, grain care accredited. So we have a couple of different independently audited systems that we run. We've been doing benchmarking for a number of years on our cropping, and now as well with our cattle side of the business, with our breeding and growing enterprise. The growing, we generally turn off at that feeder weight. Being EU, we can go a little heavier sometimes, chasing different markets there, but generally, depending on what feed we have at the time and what the prices are doing, we're pretty fluid in what we sell and when we sell. We just keep looking at markets and what feed we have on hand at the time. One of our major goals with our business, being croppers as well as cattle, is our soil health. We really concentrate on trying to improve our soil health. And in doing so, we're trying to decrease our inputs as much as we can, or our chemical inputs. And then with the good soil health, that leads to better pastures and better crops. And therefore, as you all know, you've got better outcomes at the end of the day. You're going to make better gross margins on everything you do. So generally, they all go hand in hand. If we can improve our fertility in our breeding herd, that's a pretty high objective, which we're doing a good job with, I think, at the moment. We use Belmont Red breeders predominantly, with Simmental crosses for an F1 herd as well, and then we use Angus as a terminal sire over them. So we can fit most markets at most weights with those crosses, and our weight gains are important too. So we manage them pretty well and watch our weight gains of our stock. So the quicker we can turn them off to the feeder weights, the better our bottom line. And we've been using AgriWebb since 2017. We started with their mob-based program, and it was just a natural progression to go to their individual animal management system, which has been working excellent. And our cropping matches in fairly well with AgriWebb. It was hard to find a software package that did both cropping and cattle quite well. And we settled on, after last 20 odd years of mucking around with different software packages, AgriWebb's probably been most suitable for our combination of businesses or enterprises, as well as the fact that it's very mobile and excellent in the yards with live sessions with individual animal recording. But I think that probably covers most that we need to talk about for now.
Appreciate the overview there, Phil. I'll throw it right back to you with the next one, mate. You guys both sort of touched on your business goals and what you're both planning to achieve. If you could sort of expand on how implementing AgriWebb and Farmbot is helping you achieve those business goals.
Yep, I think with AgriWebb in particular, I've been able to get better or more precise benchmarking figures. When we first started benchmarking 10, 15 years ago, some of our figures weren't as accurate or as good as they could have been. And it really came down to our record keeping, having a good system of keeping those records so that you can get good reports at the time you need them. It just gives you that information that you know is correct, and it's going to give you accurate feedback, because that's what it's all about. You want to find out which of your enterprises are doing well, which ones aren't, where you can improve them. And just by having that data there at your fingertips whenever you want through your reporting has made life so much easier. And cropping's always been fairly easy to do, our gross margins and monitor that, but cattle's been a little harder. But since we got into the individual animal management through AgriWebb, it's been fantastic, and it's just allowed everything to seamlessly come through. If I haven't got my tablet in the yard, I've got my phone and Bluetooth my scales to my phone. If one goes flat, it's not a problem. It just keeps moving from that session to I open up my phone and can continue the session on that. And that information's there. I can make decisions in the yard. It'll give me the weight gains previously. And it just made life so much easier. I don't have to come back to the office downloading information, double handling information. I can spend more time in the paddock where I'd rather be than the office. So it's been really good there. And then NLIS as well, just linking to that. Once you've got that individual animal management system going, as soon as you do something with a group of animals or even a death or something, once you've put that as a animal activity on the app, it just automatically sits there waiting for you to approve it to go through to the NLIS database. It's just so simple. It just makes my life so much easier, and I'm sure it'll be the same for everybody. It's an easy system to use. And quickly, I shouldn't forget Farmbot. Farmbot is integrated with AgriWebb really well. Its app has been fantastic on its own, so I haven't needed to necessarily access tank monitoring and that on AgriWebb from Farmbot, because their notifications and that have been so reliable, and their app's so good I haven't needed it. Where it's been excellent is the rainfall I've got 3, I think, rain gauges that automatically feed into AgriWebb from Farmbot, which is really good when it comes down to comparing properties and cropping in particular. Sorry, Ian, I'll better let you have a chat.
That's all right, Phil. There's so many areas where, the overlap is there. I heard you say you were in accredited programs, and that's where we started off 30 years ago in cattle care. We were starting off keeping written records, written paddock records, written chemical inventories, all those sorts of things. And over time, we've probably gone through iterations of various programs. I've certainly, on the cattle side of things, I use in a stud cattle, herd masters is something that I've used for at least a couple of decades, and I certainly use it now, and it's very good for stud cattle. So I use AgriWebb on a mob basis, but all my individual stuff with cattle is still done in Herdmaster because it handles extra things like EBVs and genomics and client marketing information and things like that, which is really good for the stud game. But AgriWebb has enabled us to keep all those records in one place, digitize those records. But more importantly, and a bit further than what Phil said, is where I used to keep all the records, have to go back to the office to record it because that was the location of the records or the computers, or the written record or the computer system where it was. Now having it all on a mobile phone and spread amongst team members over the farm that do the job. They might be unloading the purchased chemical into the chemical shed, and they're putting the information straight there into the chemical inventory, or they're just sprayed a paddock, or they've just moved a mob of cattle from one paddock to the other, and they're just on their mobile phone on the map on AgriWebb, they just shift that mob of cattle from that paddock A to paddock B. So it actually has allowed other people to be taking on the responsibilities as well, and that's saving the time of one person, who used to do it, which was me, and it is allowing the information to be accessible to lots of people as well. So it's not about just keeping the information, but being able to retrieve it to use it. And when you've got your agronomist there, and the agronomist is saying, well, what insecticide did you use on that paddock? Did it work or not? You can actually look it up and right there and there on your phone. So that sort of information at your fingertips on the mobile phone, available to various team members or stakeholders in your business, is really important. On the Farmbot side, the thing that got us into that technology actually was, I was probably always a little bit frustrated that that staff members would go past a tank, or maybe milling cattle around a trough, and that tank would be empty, or the trough would be leaking, and they would never see it, and then I'd go out and see it almost immediately. The Farmbot and particularly the notification that the water level is dropping quickly, that sort of information I find is invaluable. Whether you're away from the farm or on the farm, to get that notification quickly. If you're in a hot summer, you could and you're losing water from a tank, and there's a lot of animals on that water, you can imagine the value of being able to save the water in the tank, solve the problem, and not lose a large amount of water from a water system. Those sorts of things, have been really valuable to us. And we were actually, the thing that I had been looking at, sort of those sorts of tank monitoring systems for a little while. I could certainly see at Alice Springs where it would save a lot in doing a ball run that may take 8 hours, that they were getting that information. But on a more close-knit farm here, the thing that got me over the line was actually the farm connectivity grant, where the government paid for half of it. And I noticed just recently that they're going through to round 2 of that grant. So there is actually more funds coming available, and that helps you get into that sort of technology. That's certainly what helped put me over the line in adopting that technology. And when I have a tank monitor, just like Phil, I have a rain gauge in those various locations, so you can monitor rainfall in different locations as well. That was all.
Thank you, Ian and Phil. You've sort of answered 2 questions in one there, to be honest. So I might go a bit more specific in what it was actually like when you were implementing both sets of technology, and what the support network's been like from both businesses as well, to be able to enable you to do that. Maybe Ian, if you want to carry on.
Well, I think for me, it wasn't hard to load the programs and get going. I think the support, I don't think I've had a lot of need for the support. I think we just there's a number. I think to get the staff onto the programs and things, it's more that we've all got together and supported each other in understanding how we can use it and how we can different people can use the program. But there is the support network through both organisations, obviously, but we haven't really had to access it with there because it's through a mobile phone. We're pretty used to using apps and using those sorts of programs. We find it so much easier than what we used to. If we go back to the years of getting CDs and programs that we used to have to load onto computers, you think how much easier it is nowadays to adopt, these sorts of software programs.
Thanks, Ian. Phil, from your perspective?
Yeah, I agree with everything Ian's just said. It's similar with us, except I'd add a few things to that. We got into it partly because we're into Agtech anyway with our cropping side of things, so it was just a natural progression to go to more into the water and the cattle. The water monitoring, just giving you that peace of mind, like Ian said, was so important. But it saved us so much time in just doing water runs during the week, and just knowing there's definitely water there has been really good. The fact that when you're busy cropping, say harvesting or planting or whatever at those particular times of year, you don't always have spare labour floating around to be able to go and do those water runs and check on those things. So we've really benefited in those at those times, even though we haven't got huge areas to cover. It's still saved us well and truly more than what we're paying in subscriptions and also the monitoring gear in the first place. I got into a lot of this before any of the grants came along, so I paid full price, but it was well worth it, and I have no regrets. The tank monitoring was so good and the notifications were so good, it was just a natural progression then to go to pump controllers. I've got one on a solar pump, one on a three-phase submersible, and they've been a time-saving, labour-saving, fuel-saving in their own right. One particular pump controller now, it's on a 100-metre of head, so there's quite a bit of pressure in that line. Before, when we had floats and pressure systems, we used to blow lines quite often because we were getting 160 psi of pressure when the pump would turn off and shut off, so you'd have that water hammer. Since putting the pump controller in, I've had no issues at all, and the pressure never gets over around 130 psi at that head, and it's just saved us so much in labour just fixing and repairing pipes over the year. So there's little added bonuses that you don't see, and I think too, your constant flow of water into your tanks at that sort of head, you're not burning as much power as you would be if you're having a float up there just starting to build up that pressure back down the line. So we've covered our costs in implementing our Farmbot system well and truly. I was concerned at first. I thought, oh yeah, we've got subscriptions to pay. It is a lot of money. It adds up, and it was the same as AgriWebb. But years ago, I did a lot of non-subscription type apps and software programs where you just pay a one-off fee, and the support either wasn't there or the notifications weren't there, or if you had a problem, wasn't sorted quickly. So it soon worked. I soon worked it out that it was well and truly worth paying a subscription when you get good support. And at the moment, I've got not everything runs perfectly. I've got a pressure sensor on that one line, and it's been playing up. And I just rang up their Farmbot support team. They had their tech team look at it, work out what was wrong. They sent me a new sensor. We sorted that out in no time at all, and there was no hassle at all. And they've got another part coming because it's, I think it's just such high pressure. There's another issue there, but they're sending me another small part in the mail at the moment. So they've been really good to deal with support-wise, and AgriWebb the same. Anytime I've had any issues, we've sorted them out rather quickly. And to add to that, with AgriWebb, not many software programs I've dealt with, or no software programs I've ever dealt with over the years that have actually emailed me and asked me what I've thought of a product release, or what we'd like in any upgrades to their program in the future. And that's what I find really great about AgriWebb. When we moved into individual animal management, we must have been one of the first to do it, I think. And so they constantly would send me emails saying, what do you think about this idea? And I'd have a Zoom meeting with them, and it was really fantastic, because those things that were missing originally with their individual management soon got changed and improved, and they just added those things. It all costs money, so it can't happen real quick, but they were a really forward-thinking company, and they're happy to listen to the producer, which is great, because some software companies, they build these programs and that's how it is. You've got to put up with what you get. So I think Farmbot's the same. They tend to make a product that suits the producer, and whether you're doing cattle, sheep, cropping, it's they cater for you.
Fantastic. We've just got one more question here. We'll throw it back over to you again, Phil. I think it'd be good for everyone listening to sort of visualize how you guys use AgriWebb and Farmbot day to day. You both mentioned it can alleviate some labour issues in terms of delegation and things like that, and also support some decision making. So if you guys could just explain, simply how you're using both the programs in a normal day on the farm.
Well, at the moment, we've started supplementary feeding since we've had quite a number of frosts, and it's dried off now. So most of my breeders, well, all my breeders now are getting a mineral supplement, urea-based supplement. And if I don't do it, if one of my boys does it, or one of the other staff do it, they've just entered on their phone. They just put exactly what amount of feed they've put in, which mob, and it's all there. I don't have to be double handling it. They don't have to come back and have it written on a piece of paper. Look, I gave this mob this, and this. It's all there straight away. It comes out of my inventory, so I can quickly look at my inventory on my phone at any time and say, okay, I've still got 2 ton of mineral supplement left. That'll last me 2 weeks. I better order some more. It's made management so much easier, because you can look at your inventory. It just comes off that. And it's the same with your cropping, with your chemicals and all that as well. Or even if you're doing cattle treatments, so long as you've got your inventory there set up correctly, it just comes off it as you do those inputs into either a paddock treatment or an animal treatment, and you know exactly what's in there. And then, like we said earlier, when it comes to do audits, at audit time, it's so much easier. I don't have to go and do a stock take. Well, if you do, it's rather quick because it's correct. Everything's been entered correctly. I had to do an audit recently, so I just pulled up my reports, found the information I needed very quickly, and the auditor was happy, and they went away saying that was probably one of the more seamless, problematic audits they've ever done. So I was pretty happy with that. But it's taken time to get to that. There's always little reports that you miss out on, or things that an auditor needs at times that aren't covered, so you've got to dig a bit further and find them. But those things are being improved all the time.
I'll take over from Phil. There's lots of things Phil's talked about and that we do as well. The feed inventory management and in our case, chemical inventory I find is fantastic. When you get to the audit, I'll make the comment that once you say, oh, we use AgriWebb, they nearly tick it off. So it makes it a lot easier from that point of view, that they know that you've got a good system in place. I wanted to talk about some other things that we use AgriWebb for, which I find really useful. We use it a lot. I'm using the farm maps all the time, and so do other team members on our place, that you know where any stock are at any time. But there's also a task management area on those farm maps, and if I'm going around the place and I see a broken wire or a broken hinge on a gate or something, whatever, that you're always seeing something, you can be at that spot. It's got your dot at your GPS location where you are, and you just write fix broken hinge on gate or lengthen chain on gate, whatever it is, and you can take a photo of it at that spot if you like. So so it records what it looks like, so it helps people who may have to go and fix that. You can allocate that task to someone. You can put it whether it's a high priority or not, and it enters your task list. So it can enter a system of your task management for operating the farm as well. So there's lots of things like that which we find really useful in the day-to-day. And if you're heading out to strain up a wire or to weld up something, you can have a look on the map of where all the others are, and there might be 3 or 4 tasks in that location on your property where you're not travelling separately to it. You can do 3 or 4 things in the one trip, and it saves you time and it's more efficient. Though that's just one small thing, but it's certainly something we're using all the time. As I said, it's using the map. The tanks that come through Farmbot come up as infrastructure on that farm map. So when I'm looking at those tanks, all I have to do is tap that infrastructure icon on that map, and I'm able to load and see what the how full it is, and whether it's rising or falling in its in the tank levels and all those sorts of things. So that's giving me really good information. Actually, we've identified a problem in recent times since we've got Farmbot on one of our tanks. In this case, we had a bore that used to have an air bore attached to it. We changed it to a solar bore. Basically because of cost, the air bore, getting the air there and the electricity to get the air there was a high cost, and we thought solar was better. But as it's turned out, in the winter months we don't get enough sun on the panels, and that water system is really under pressure in the winter months, which is something we weren't expecting. And we were blaming other things until we got Farmbot there, and it's given us data to make better decisions. And in this case, we're going to have to supplement that water some other ways, so into that system. But it is it's actually helped us, that integration, to be able to understand what the real problem was. And we were blaming pumps, and we were blaming other things like spray units taking too much water out of the system, when we're doing sprays and things like that. So, which wasn't correct. It was just not enough sun. And you can see that really clearly from the data coming through the Farmbot system on the tank. Anyway, I'll stop there.
Can I just add one quick one, Lachlan?
Yeah, mate, go for it, please.
Just one thing that I did remember about with that we use a bit is with the individual animal management program. When you click on your phone, you find your map, you click on your mob, you can have that broken down into a number of groups in that mob if you want. Like, you can have management groups within that mob. And the good part that I've found with the individual side of things is it'll give me a breakup of the average weights of each of those groups. If I've got a couple of mixed groups in a paddock, so that if I've got an agent or somebody with me and they want to know like what weights you've got there and what your predicted weights are, that's all calculated for you. If you've been weighing regularly, those weights are predicted for you, and you can give him that feedback, or whoever you're talking to at the time. You can give him that feedback live straight in the paddock just by getting your phone out, which I found really handy. It's they've developed that individual animal management rather quickly, but quite they've done a really good job with that, and I'm getting quite a bit out of that now. It's really coming to its fore. Yeah, that's all I want to say. Thanks, Lachlan.
Yeah, I mean, before we move on, we do have a couple questions in the Q&A that we may as well knock off now. Both sort of relate to connectivity, you know, how you are for cellular data on the farm there. Do either of you guys have any trouble utilizing Farmbot and AgriWeb's functions offline or remotely on the farm?
With the Farmbot, a couple of places we were a little bit dodgy, but it's satellite, so that solved that problem. With AgriWeb, generally you can enter data, and as long as you've got the app on your phone, you can open it and use it in an offline mode. It just automatically syncs once you get back into service, so that if anybody else is using the system, theirs will be updated as well.
Yeah, same answer from me. It because you can be using it offline, as soon as you're back in wireless area, it all just updates. So it's totally it's not a big issue to be offline, because you can record and everything offline, just like a mobile phone, really. Yeah.
There was one more in the chat as well, Lockie. It was specific to how Ian and Phillip handle the planning of fertilizer programming by paddock and chemical treatments of paddocks, and how you do that using AgriWeb, if you do that using AgriWeb or not.
A big part of what I do is look at what I did last year. So it's bringing down the records of previous years and looking at that. You may have done some soil tests since and changed some of those, but quite often I actually use an Excel spreadsheet for planning my paddock fertilizer requirements, but record it all on AgriWeb. But bringing down what I've done in past years, I quite often use 200 kilograms of super on my where I'm running. For example, over 25 DSE to the hectare, I'm running quite large amounts of super. If I feel I'm getting the P levels high enough and I'm getting capital levels of P, if I've done that for 8 years or so, I might back it off in some tougher years or something if I wish, and put that P somewhere else. P being phosphorus. So it's really about having the records and being able to have a program where you are able to download that information, and AgriWeb gives me that information to be able to do that. So for planning, I think it's about looking at history and then being able to have a system to take that information and move it forward.
Yeah, similar to Ian, we do use some other systems on some of our planning with our fertilizer and chemical use in cropping. The inventory in AgriWeb's quite handy in the sense that you, when you do enter a chemical or a fertilizer or whatever into there, when you purchase it, you put on, generally you'll put in there, it'll ask you to, what your rate of application will be. So at least then when you do, if you want to do a planned activity or something, that amount that you've put in there as your recommended rate will come through automatically. But otherwise, yeah, for some planning we do use on other spreadsheets as well.
There is a final question in there, Lockie, that I mean, it's one sentence from my perspective. Cybersecurity, how's the data stored and is it secured? From a Farmbot perspective, the servers are kept in Australia and the data is owned by Ian and Phil and any of our other customers. So it's all privately owned essentially by the producer.
Yeah. And from AgriWeb's perspective, it's very similar. You own the data that you're putting in, and we do everything we can to protect that. That includes encryption. We have regular security audits, and we're continually monitoring it for any potential threats. So it's very safely stored, and it is all your data. We'll jump through. We've just got a quick presentation. I'll start with AgriWebb, then throw over to Nick to talk about Farmbot, and then we'll jump back into the Q&A. So keep the questions coming, please. So AgriWebb, the main mission of AgriWebb is to empower the livestock industry with the best tools to feed the world sustainably, profitably, and efficiently. So one of the bigger challenges that was sort of found when the founders were sort of exploring options on how to achieve this mission. The old classic paper notebook that's probably seen a few washing machines at time and often gets thrown around the work utes. I think at its core, AgriWebb was built to replace that. It's since grown to offer many features and probably be used as more of a decision-making tool now. But here's a classic quote that probably resonates with a lot of people before they sign up to AgriWebb or something similar. I'm collecting data in my notebook. Sometimes it gets into my Excel sheet. The problem is I'm collecting all of this data, but I'm getting nothing out of it. So AgriWebb is more or less a one-stop shop to consolidate all that data and just ensure that you're going to get something out of that, whether that be a decision-making tool or it'll just help provide those insights to streamline your practices on the farm. All the data your farm needs to succeed, all in one place. So AgriWebb, it knocks off cropping, livestock, of course, and many business management tools. Ian touched on how it can streamline labour as well. So there's more or less three main functions. The most important one being animal management. You can track all your animal records that you're making on the farm in AgriWebb. Then we've got paddock management. You can track obviously your cropping records, but more importantly your inputs. So all your spraying use and fertilizer use, you can actually maintain your inventory on the app. And then your business management, so you can provide visibility for the whole team. Everyone can have their own login and username and password to ensure everyone's on the same page and just streamline that communication on the farm, particularly with things like the task management system and the calendar. And then beyond that record keeping, you've then got your insights, which support your decision making on the farm. You get things like weight insights and analyses that will provide average daily gains and things like that per individual animal. You can track some financials, some gross margin reporting. That's paddock gross margin and livestock gross margin. And it's going to really support you guys looking at your paddocks and identifying which are your higher performing paddocks with some paddock grazing intensity reports. So where we are today, right now we've got 17 million plus animals under management in Australia, 7,000 farmers. Each month it's 100 plus businesses are getting on board, but probably the most important one would be the retention rate. So less than 1% of people that sign up end up leaving AgriWebb. And I think that's a real credit to the ongoing support and the fact that AgriWebb was built by farmers for farmers. So the guys that work here really are, you know, they understand the farmer, and they do everything they can to ensure the experience is worth their while, and you get a return on your investment. So our AgriWebb marketplace. So obviously Farmbot, the big one that we integrate with for all your water monitoring solutions, but also a lot of guys with weigh scales for individual animal management. That data can talk to AgriWebb and flow straight in. We've got some pasture management ones with SIBO labs, and even some carbon assessment stuff with Ruminati there. Touching on Farmbot quickly, how it all works with AgriWebb before I throw it over to Nick. So it more or less automates your tank levels and your rainfall. So your Farmbot rainfall gauges and tank monitorers just directly talk to AgriWebb and provides you those numbers directly in your app. So this is how it looks in terms of the water tank levels. It'll give you some visual readings and things like that. You know, say if you have to go out in the paddock and you've got it all in the one spot in conjunction with your livestock and paddock records. And exact same with rainfall. So that's all recorded automatically in AgriWebb. So it's all in the one stop there. And then this is just a quick shout out. We do have we are offering 30% off for all those non-customers that are in the webinar. So, you know, if you're a Farmbot customer but not an AgriWebb customer, feel free to reach out, and we'd love to be able to offer you 30% off if you sign up this month. Throwing over to you now, Nick.
Thanks, Lockie. Just on to the next slide, if you could.
Yep.
So checking water for livestock it's unavoidable. Thousands of people will be out there doing it right now, and they're checking water that 95% of the time does not need checking. The 5% of the time that it does need checking, it's critical. Why not do that remotely from your mobile phone, from your laptop, and receive real-time alerts when something's going on at the exact location that is actually taking place? Next slide, please. We're a leader in the space. We've got more than 20,000 sensors out there that are operating as we speak across more than 4,000 businesses. And essentially it works 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year as eyes on the paddock. What is that doing? It's reducing water runs by more than half, combating labour shortages, which is something that both Phil and Ian touched on, saving fuel, wear and tear on vehicles, and it essentially just allows your team to spend more time tackling that critical task list that never seems to diminish. Next slide, please. So this is a top-down view of what Farmbot would look like if you logged in on a laptop. It looks very similar on your mobile phone too. Each flag on the map represents some infrastructure that you've installed, and you can see in a snapshot essentially where things are happening and what's happening at each one of those points. It's a very simple traffic light system. Green, everything's good. Amber, keep an eye on it, and then red, you've got a critical issue. And as Ian said before, when you click on one of those flags on the map, it's going to pop up with what's actually happening at that location, which is what we've just done. So we've clicked on a tank that's experienced a leak. Each one of the lines on the graph there, the dotted lines, that represents one of the warning levels. So it would have passed through those 2 warning levels, sent you a text message to your phone. That blue line as well, you'll notice that's actual usage. So it's very easy for you to go back in time and have a look at how much usage is taking place in the paddock, even from a livestock drinking perspective. The summary up there at the top, you can change that from a period of time perspective. And then on the left-hand side, you can see all the different sensors that have been installed at this particular property. Bit more detail about the leak side of things. So the tank height would be an overflow alert. So say the float's got stuck, you're going to get a text message. There's a low level alert, which gives you time to get to the problem. And then a critical low level alert. You've obviously had a bit of a disaster, but you know, you need to know about it. And the most important one is the excessive rate of fall, which in essence is a leak alert. So you're going to get that in near real time, and it works off the trend as to what's happening at that particular time. So if it drops by 40 centimeters in 60 minutes, you get your text message, you can get out there and you can fix the problem. From a rainfall perspective, we've just had a bit of a revamp of this product actually, which is really cool in the software. You can see there at the top, bit of an overview as to what's happened in the paddock, and from a paddock management perspective as well, you can see why this will be extremely important. But you can now also compare different rain gauges across your property over different periods of time as well. And you can adjust when this updates versus the BOM. So you can pick 9 a.m. in the morning for it to upload, which will match what you'll get from the BOM. How to get started? Really, it's try one on a tank. Whatever the biggest issue that you're having is right now, that one tank that's a little bit too far away from the house, have a go, and you'll understand very, very quickly the benefits of having something on there that's telling you 365 days of the year what level of water is in that tank to guarantee that your stock have got access to water. Bit of a view of what it looks like from a mobile perspective. So it's mobile friendly. Obviously, the alerts that you can see in front of you from a text message perspective, and then what each different type of feedback would look like from a high, low, and critical alert level perspective too. So AgriWebb and Farmbot, it's very, very easy to integrate. I think we've touched on that between the four of us. And it's a super powerful tool, right? You're going to get the information that Farmbot's collecting, and then you're adding that to the arsenal of information that you've got from an AgriWebb perspective. I think you're about to find out very shortly how easy it is to actually do that integration too. I would absolutely push any Farmbot customer, any AgriWebb customer that we share, to really seriously consider doing this. It's a really interesting and valuable tool to link the two. Do we want to jump back into the chat, see if there's anyone who's asked any more questions?
Cellular network coverage.
There's a question that's just been popped in the chat around the on-farm connectivity grant. There's been a number of announcements over the last few days that yes, there will be a second round. The details of that are as follows. There is $18 million available. They've changed the parameters to entry as well, I believe. I don't know them off the top of my head yet because I believe that announcement came out this morning. But yes, towards the end of this year, there will be a round 2 that goes live. And for those that do fit the entry requirements, it's obviously it's an awesome way to get started with some Agritech from a connectivity perspective.
As we wait for questions to come in, we may as well kick the conversation off with a simple one here. If either Phil or Ian wants to jump on this one, what is the tip you'd give farmers who are on just starting their journey and just looking to purchase their first bit of Agtech?
I'm happy to address that if you like. It's really for me it comes down to does it address a key issue in your business? So it's all very good to have something. For example, I remember years ago, I'm quite into technology, so it was easy for me to go and get a drone. I thought it'd be quite good to go and check my heifers, with a drone, but it was more convenience and it didn't really work out that way for me, and it wasn't a big issue for me, and I've never really used it much since. So it wasn't a key issue in my business. The key issues for me are really about saving time. We're busy. The farm is a busy program. Anything that saves time, saves resources, saves labour, makes things easier. They're the things that we're thinking about. And, resources include water, for a water leak, things like that. So that to me, look for a key issue that in your business that a technology might be able to address. and that's a good starting point.
Was there anything to add there, Phil, from your perspective?
Not really. Ian touched on everything I would have said. Probably the only thing would be is you don't have to go in boots and all. I mean, AgriWebb, you don't have to go in and get their individual animal management if you don't want. It just depends what data you want out at the end of the day. Some people need more data than others, and you can do data overload sometimes. And the more information you've got there, you can just not use any of it. So you've got to, like Ian said, work out what you need and then go from there. But AgriWebb does cater for that. And then with water monitoring, well, really comes down to what you think you can afford and how it's going to improve your life as well as your cattle's well-being, really. So if you can afford it and you think it's going to save you time and money, it's well worth getting into.
There's another question in the chat here around notifications coming through AgriWebb versus Farmbot. At present, that is not how things are set up. The notifications come through the Farmbot app. I'm not sure if there's any plans in the future for that to change. So at present, notifications will remain coming through Farmbot's side of things. But as we've already discussed, the levels themselves will absolutely be available through AgriWebb. And there's ongoing discussion around other product too that will be viewable within the app. Ian and Phil, I'll jump in here with another one of the questions that we've got. In general, how are you seeing technology in the ag space improve lives of those around you as well? Some of your peers might be using technology that has been extremely useful to them. It might not even talk to AgriWebb and Farmbot, but yeah, in general, have you seen other people using this kind of technology and it's improved their situation?
That's a very big question. There's so much technology happening, isn't there? I mean, from driverless, no steer in cropping systems all the way, robotics to, there's so many things happening in genetics. There's genomics happening where we're going finding individual genes and being able to identify how that affects animals, and moving to a stage where we might be able to identify those crush side to make decisions and animals. I don't know where to start on where Agtech is affecting farm businesses. It's happening faster and faster all the time, and the sad thing is that when we first started thinking about adopting computers or whatever to manage our information flows and all those sorts of things, we thought it might make life easier. But what it does is it quickens everything up and makes everything more immediate. And I think things just the wheel getting faster, and our ability, the need to keep up is forever there. The need for change seems to be getting faster. So I don't have an answer. All I'm saying is that we've got to keep up with it, and Agtech is certainly making things easier, but in the long run, in the ability to compete and to become more efficient, we need to adopt these things to be actually stay in business and keep our terms of trade. So we've just got to adopt, and we've got to make sure we're involved.
Thank you, Ian. I think we've sort of pushed our time limit a little bit on this one, but what we will do now, we'll wrap things up. Thanks very much to Ian and Phil for all of their insight. It's been really interesting to hear from you, and thanks to everyone for joining us and participating. Lockie, yourself too, and the AgriWebb team. If you want to continue a conversation with anyone from Farmbot and AgriWebb, obviously directly reach out. You can do that straight after this meeting too. You've got our details. I believe you're going to receive a copy of this webinar to everybody that has signed up for it. So it was a fantastic chat, and thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks all.
Yeah.